welcome back to another episode of the Catholic Buzz podcast. We're happy that you're joining us again as we continue to talk about issues in the Catholic world, topics of the Catholic world. My name is Father Daniele, and I am joined, as usual, by Josh Sullivan over here.
Hello, how are you?
Josh, welcome to you.
Yeah, thanks.
And, of course, our tag team partner, it's Matt Van Milligan. Matt, welcome to you.
Hello. I think that's the closest to a wrestling, introduction I've ever gotten.
Yeah, I've always dreamed of being announced like a wrestler. That's like still a dream for me. It's not impossible, Matt. It might happen.
My inner 8-year-old is soaring.
It's soaring right now. Yeah, I gotta get in better shape if that's gonna be a reality. Yeah. So this week we're together again, and I know in some areas we advertised that this week we were going to be talking about the topic if priests should be getting married, right?
Yeah.
So we've pushed that discussion back about a week because we decided that there was a little more pressing things to talk about, and one of the beautiful things I love to talk about it is truth, And there's a couple things that came to play here since our last time we were together. That's sort of our discernment was to talk about this topic because, number one, we have this big event happening in Canada right now, this convoy of trucks kind of in Ottawa, and people kind of traveling through the country trying to bring what they believe in to the attention of Parliament. And that's kind of, begun conversation, ripple effects, conversations in every place, every time. You can't go anywhere without talking about it. And then plus, this past Sunday, just a few days ago, we read this gospel from Luke's gospel, and Jesus stands up in the synagogue. He proclaims he is the fulfillment of the scriptures, and he talks about the truth about who he is. People get so upset. It said that they got so upset, they were so full of rage that they wanted to throw him off a cliff. I've wanted to do that with Matt for a long time, but
But he only speaks truth.
He only speaks truth. I can't be mad at it. Yeah, exactly. So there's a theme going on here. We have people who are trying to present what's meaningful to them on a grand scale. We see it in the scriptures. Jesus is presenting who he is, what he is, to people. People are getting so upset, and we as Catholics sit back and we sort of see this going on. We are people of truth. We believe in Jesus, the way, the truth, and the life. So we're going to talk today about how to discern truth in our world.
Yeah, I think it's important today because it's so often today. I mean, like pretty much when any big event happens, it seems like the media just wants to polarize. It's you got one side or the other, and if you don't agree with us, then you're evil, or the flip from the opposite side. But there's no in between. There's no that you have to be one way or another. If you look at it like from United States elections and all that other stuff, you're one side or the other, and you're absolutely no way in between. The whole right now with the vaccinations and unvaccinated, and talking about even the trucker convoy.
Yeah.
What exactly is going on there? It seems like there's so much. I don't want to say misinformation, maybe misinformation, but polarizing information from one side or the other. That how do we discern truth? How do we come through and see what is actually true? How do we see with our Christian blinders on, not blinders, Christian goggles? How do we see through the lies? How do we see through the misinformation? How do we see through the narrative that one news media or the other try to promote, and realize, okay, this is not quite what's going on there. What's the real truth here? What's really happening?
Exactly. As Catholics, think about it as Catholics. What the Catholic Church teaches, who we are as Catholics, is so countercultural that that's sort of our life, eh?
It really
our
is.
life is like navigating truth.
Yeah.
What does God say? What do we think? What do we feel? What are other people saying or feeling? But ultimately, we're discerning what God says.
I was going to say, if you trust the news and media wholeheartedly, one of the things I'll bring right to your attention is, how do they portray the Catholic Church? You know what I mean? Like, so if that is your image, then you have to realize that. So where do you take? You know what I mean? So where do we go for truth? For me, it's like that's what I think we got to handle.
Yeah. So we're talking about, obviously this thing in Ottawa that's going on is not insignificant. It's a large number of people traveling through the country. So, on one side you have sort of the media telling you what it's about. Then you have the people who began this convoy, the truckers. They're telling you what they originally started.
Yeah.
Then you have a bunch more people who have sort of attached themselves
to it, yeah.
to this movement, right? And you have sort of reports from people on the ground, people who are watching it. I have friends that live in Ottawa that are seeing these things take place. They're saying, for the most part, it's largely peaceful, right? The media focuses on things that are, and the things that happen, the vandalism or whatever, not to be condoned at all,
of course not.
right?
No.
But that's not, I think, what's largely happening there. So yeah, is this situation? How do we look at this situation in terms of seeing what's clearly happening? Because over the past year or two, there's been so much information overload for people, and it's like almost me when I hear the news and I talk to you guys about this stuff. It's like, how do we know?
What do we
what's
believe?
true?
Yeah.
What do we
Yeah.
believe? But that has implications too for our life of faith.
Yeah, and really calling into question our own investment in like where we're getting information from. Like, why are we so invested in what's happening? Like, we should be concerned about public safety and the right to peaceful protest,
Right.
and all of these things that come into play. But there are other parties involved that are invested in other things or are trying to package what's happening with their own
Agenda
programs,
or-
their own agenda. So, which makes it all the more difficult when our sources for the information, like even if you just want, I just want the facts. I just want to know, like, or even try and get a number of how many people are there. From a number of different news sources, you're getting different numbers because their investment in how many or how few people are present.
If it's their agenda or their story,
maybe skews the way they're representing the information. So it's difficult for us to, we should be interested in the facts. We should be interested in public life. But if our investment is an investment in one of these narratives over the facts, I think that's something that we can kind of evaluate in ourselves. That's something we can control.
Do you think this is? This is a problem that seems to be getting more and more prevalent. But do you think it's because of the way the information highway that we have nowadays? Like, if we're talking about 20 years ago, even 30 years ago, we didn't have the access necessarily to the information that we do now instantaneously, right? Like, someone posts something online, instantaneously, you have it. Ding on your phone and it's there.
Well, in the 90s, that was the promise. So just like when it's like the internet was becoming popularized or becoming kind of mainstream, it's like, okay, the information superhighway.
Yeah.
Is that it's like, okay, we're going to have ready access to all this information, and it's going to, like, in many ways solve all these problems that, this news outlet is, owned by this person, so they have their agenda or whatever. Like, the promise was to kind of get rid of that, because when you make information freely accessible to everyone on the planet at any given time, but in many ways, I think it's fair to say that it's exacerbated that problem quite a bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
You have reports about this, gathering at Parliament. There's people saying that they're there with legitimate concerns about vaccine mandates and other issues that they want to bring forward to Parliament.
Yeah.
Then you have one side saying that these are a bunch of racists gathered together on Parliament Hill. You have other people saying that they're a bunch of troublemakers. You have people online just posting pictures of their families, just kind of there taking in the scene and enjoying it. There's so many dimensions to it, but that's what comes from this instant posting of news, right? This world that we live in when we just post things all the time. And it's hard to see context. It's hard to see what's true. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I find like that. It's funny you bring that up, because you think about our trucking trade. If you look at truckers and the a lot of immigrants work in the trucking field. Like that's the job. It is an awful job. Like if you think about it, I mean, I for the truckers that are out there, I really do. It's a 24 hours sometimes. You're driving around the clock. You're sleeping in the back while somebody else is driving for you, and then you switch, or it's 3 people, and then 8-hour shift. You're sleeping, and then you're driving for 8 hours, and then you get like whatever it is. But 24 hours, you go across so you can get the truck there and back. 3 people in a cab, just switching it out. But most of those people are coming out from out of country potentially, and these are the jobs that they're getting. So this is not necessarily a racist thing. These are truckers that have come from all different nations, all different cultures, all different colors that are protesting as well. So it's not a that's one of those things. When I saw that, I thought, kind of laughed, because I know many of the people that are truckers or whatever don't prescribed to that lifestyle, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
I know, but and that goes back to like, there's different groups sort of attaching themselves to this movement. In fact, I think something you showed me, right?
Yeah.
The guy who was sort of the organizer of the original movement.
Yeah.
He was saying that so many groups
just
have attached themselves to the movement that they don't even know what sort of
they said
some
something
people are doing anymore.
Yeah, they asked him how many trucks are still left to come. He's like, we have absolutely no idea.
Right.
Like there are so many people coming from where, from all over. Like these trucks are coming from all over the place. We have absolutely no idea. So so we get down to the point.
Yeah.
How do we find truth? What are the steps that we take to find truth?
Yeah. Well, I think like we can kind of piggyback. We were saying like that there's that there's at least an attempt from either media outlets or individuals who are opposed to this demonstration, this protest, to spin it in a certain direction.
Yeah.
That it's like you tie this to you rebrand it as something racist or something that you can dismiss, something that you cannot take seriously. And I find that there's more and more of that in kind of the presentation of this in social media, in other places, that it's not actually an encounter with truth. It's not an encounter with real ideas that real people hold. It's we're gonna associate them. In philosophy, it's a fallacy, the fallacy of association, that I can tie your ideas to this thing that nobody likes, and then we can just dismiss it outright.
Yeah.
Whereas actually engaging people in real discussion about even if you think vaccines are a good thing, are vaccine mandates a good thing? And like you can actually have a nuanced discussion that is kind of eliminated by this kind of shouting match of social media or kind of this echo chamber of the way that information is disseminated, that maybe as kind of a first way of how do we find truth is like, okay, recognizing individuals, not dismissing caricatures or ideas or just
labeling,
labeling,
stereotyping, labeling.
That's good. Yeah. I remember I was listening to Bishop Robert Barron talk once, and I think he was talking about the abortion debate or something like that, and I think someone had asked him, how do you even have conversations? And he said something similar, like, first we got to recognize that we're talking to people here, like we have to see each other's humanity first, and then second, he said, really important when you're debating stuff like that is time to end it when it gets emotional, right?
If it's emotional.
Because when people can't talk about these things logically anymore and work, like, there's lots of things that we take in each day, maybe even in the life of our church, that we sort of wrestle with to understand, right? Because just naturally, things of God aren't things of ours, right? Yeah. So we kind of hear something like, wow, God sees beauty in this particular thing. How am I going to find beauty in that? So you kind of wrestle with it in your brain, and you wrestle with it in your heart. Since we're on the theme of wrestling, I guess from before, but and those are the things. But he said when things get way out of control, passionate, emotional, he goes, time to cut it off, because now no one's going anywhere. Yeah, it just becomes heated.
There's no movement. Yeah.
But look, we were talking about the gospel this past Sunday. Jesus stands up. He says he's the fulfillment of the scriptures. He's read from the prophet Isaiah, which people would have been very familiar with, right? So they were right along with him. They knew what he was saying.
Word for word,
yeah. And then at first they were like, oh, okay, this guy's like not bad. He's maybe Joseph's son, or is that Joseph's son, or whatever it is. But then when he starts telling them about the truth, remember he uses in Luke, we're talking Luke chapter 4, verse 21 to 30, he uses the prophet Elijah and the prophet Elisha. He's using examples from the scriptures, right, where God went to provide help for the Gentile people, not the Jewish people, right? And all of a sudden, everyone erupted in rage, rage that all Jesus would have the nerve to say that God is here for all people, right? Yeah. Today, that sounds normal. We wouldn't argue with that, right? We wouldn't argue that God's here for all people. That's just normal. We just think of course, God's here for all people. But like that one we can accept. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But what about what are the things that Jesus stands up in the proverbial synagogue of our lives, right? And says, and his church teaches that we are kind of like full of rage. And remember, the people, I said this on Sundays, I was like, they weren't just upset. They were so full of rage, they wanted to throw him off a cliff.
Yeah.
Like that's...
Got emotional.
That got emotional. That got emotional, right? So, what are the things that Jesus says and the church teaches that get people in a rage? That get people so upset that they get emotional and they want to clock you one or whatever it might be, right?
There's a lot of that. And I think that's where kind of you see the news media outlet attack the church.
Yeah.
Like we talked about it last week with the pets and versus kids, and it just seemed to erupt because it hit people's heartstrings in a certain way.
Yeah.
But there is, like, what the church is teaching is there is truth, humanity above animals and pets, but there's a whole, whenever this comes out, whenever there is truth brought and people don't see eye to eye with that truth, then it becomes emotional. It becomes a thing that they can bring out.
But it's almost a tactic too of how we deal with stuff.
Well, now it's
right?
I really do believe we're in a victim mentality this day and age. I like the way that we debate is, I'm a victim. I really feel like that is almost like a legitimate argument. Like, you're attacking me, and so everyone has to listen to me. I feel like that is something that comes out in a way of trying to defend the way that you believe, but that's not logic. That's you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
And there's, especially if you're like interested and invested in the history of ideas, like there's this kind of long tradition of like even like hard teachings of Jesus.
Yeah.
Even go back to the Old Testament. That it's like you have like people wrestling with God, people questioning like, is this what I'm actually supposed to do? Like, who am I to lead these people? Like, God doesn't just say, he doesn't cancel them. He doesn't just shut them down. He's like, no, like,
wrestle me.
You're up for a good row. Okay, like let's do this. Let's work this out, and that you can use that as a metaphor for his engagement with the Jewish people throughout the Old Testament. But then even within the tradition of the church, like there's such a breadth. Like the intellectual tradition of the church is robust enough that we have, doctors of the church who have, intense
views,
philosophical disagreements about different things. So like, first of all, like there's this kind of long tradition of being able to have a discussion, being able to like disagree with respect. And it's like we're losing that in this kind of claim, like as a tactic almost, but also the sort of relativization of truth. That it's like, I don't have to engage in this tradition because I can't actually overcome the logic of, whatever position. So it's my truth. It's like, I'm appealing to what I believe, which, on some level can be a tactical thing. It can also be a way of avoiding these really serious conversations and necessary conversations and necessary topics that are becoming increasingly difficult to have a discussion about because it either devolves into kind of an emotional clashing of emotions rather than a deliberate and sincere exchange of ideas.
And you're saying that what came to mind was when you're talking about the Israelites, like we know them as the Israelites, and the term Israel came from Jacob. Jacob became Israel, and that meant to wrestle with God. He was given the name Israel after he spent a night wrestling with the servant of God, right? Yeah. With God. So
like on what you were saying, how do we move away from this idea of my truth and try to start to see truth?
Well, it's funny because there's almost a paradox in the way that ideas are treated now. If you get into kind of any social or political or I'm a humanities major or and anything like that, it's like it's increasingly relativized. But in other areas and like in science and mathematics and whatever, like you can't get away with that.
No,
you can't. This is my chemistry or this is my but
it's very good.
Yeah, so there is some more grounding in different disciplines, but interestingly, and this may be a total tangent, like in the 1920s, there was a huge debate among mathematicians and philosophers about the logical grounding of mathematics. That as calculus became much more prevalent in the way mathematics was done and more useful in like applied mathematics like engineering and calculating weight distribution over curves and things like that. Some mathematicians didn't like that at all because you can't ground the idea of infinity, and the idea of infinity is necessary to do these equations. So it's like even in something as you would expect to be as concrete as math, you still have these discussions and these debates about metaphysical things. So I think we need to reclaim some of that tradition that is like, okay, well, we can talk about math and we can talk about science in this kind of way that, we can ask questions as though there are answers and that aren't just my answers, or that like, this isn't just my science. It's like, no, we can ask these about metaphysical things. We can ask these about theological things and actually have a fruitful discussion that, makes appeal to some truth rather than just my own opinion.
Don't you think that sometimes people in the church, it could be priests, could be just lay people, could be people, whatever it might be. I feel like sometimes it's been perpetuated, this sort of misinformation about the church, right? And go no further from when I grew up, sort of thing. Like when I grew up, we weren't taught sort of the teachings of Jesus in a way that now I've come to understand, right? It was very just elementary, and when we had real questions about things, it was like, well, you don't have to worry about that stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So when we're talking about moral issues today, I'm thinking of the moral issues that get people passionate. We're talking about the rage ones, like euthanasia or abortion, things like this. It was like, oh, you know what? God loves everyone. You don't have to worry about that. And I think that's done such a disservice to not. And I'm saying. Not just to Catholics, but to the entire world, because at a certain point, people will laugh at what I'm about to say, but at a certain point in history, people looked towards the Catholic Church as sort of its moral compass.
Yeah, I agree.
Today, people would laugh at that, right? Just because of what's been reported and,
potential scandals and all that.
Scandals and things like that, right? But at a certain point, and when people in the church, whether they were leaders or lay people or members of your family, weren't ready to talk about the truth, they were just kind of passing things off as God loves all things and everyone. That's done not just a disservice to the church, but I think to our culture, to our society, right? This anything goes sort of mentality.
I think what you're seeing nowadays too is you have people that have grown up in a certain time where you don't question, right? You don't like what you were saying.
Yes.
Now, part of that is too. I agree with you from an adult point of view now, because I grew up at the same time.
Yeah.
As from an adult point of view, looking down at it, those are adults that didn't know themselves, right? They didn't have an answer for themselves, so they didn't know how to answer you. So
they said, "Don't worry about it,"
exactly,
or whatever.
Well, we'll figure that out later. It's like let's push this off because I have no idea what the answer is. I think people have to be comfortable with saying I don't know. People aren't comfortable with saying I don't know. And as a professor, I can tell you that happens with me, especially in computers, where things come up all the time, and like my students are. Don't tell them this. Half the time, they're more brilliant than I am. But then when they come up with like terms like, "Hey, sorry, have you heard about this?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." Like, you have to be prepared to say, "I don't know."
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you're not willing to figure it out. Right? There's a difference between "I don't know," "Don't ask me this," or like, "This is we shouldn't talk about this," versus "I don't know. Hey, let's figure out the answer together." You know. And so when someone comes to you with a question like that, you say, "I don't know. Let's figure out the answer together." But that means that you have to start questioning. You have to start looking for answers, and you have to start questioning the answers that you get. You can't just be like, don't believe everything you read. Don't believe everything you hear. Don't believe everything on the news. Don't believe everything. Like, you can't open your Facebook chat and go, okay, I wonder how, like, I don't know what the church believes about this. Let me search it on Google and then go to the first site that you see there. Because if it's not Catholic, it's not probably what the church teaches necessarily. You know what I mean? So you have to search, and you have to have a good head on your shoulders and look for truth. A lot of times, like for myself, when I don't have an answer, I like to look and I like to read both sides of the story. I specifically go in, like if it's something about Catholics, I go in and I read, like, why does the Catholic Church teach about Mary, let's say? And then I go on that view and I figure out what they teach about Mary. And then I go on the opposite side. I'll go and see why doesn't the Christian churches that don't believe or don't like Mary, or what do they say that the Catholic Church teaches about Mary? And the reason I go on there is to see, is there truth in what they're saying, right? I want to see, but then I look at what the church is saying. They have 2,000 years of history here, and good explanation and good reasons if you get into it. The answer is never, oh, the church doesn't know, we just do that. They have a reason.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing. It's like it's the answer isn't just because, or because the church says so. That it's like it's built upon a broad theological, philosophical, intellectual tradition that has had this ongoing discourse for 2,000 years about about these issues, but I wanted to touch on what you're saying about like this continual asking process with a recognition of, I have limited knowledge. I don't know everything. But questioning as though there is an answer. That is like, and as though, being able to have a discussion about these really hot topic issues, that it doesn't just kind of boil down to my opinion, or I'm not willing to communicate what the church teaches because I don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or I don't want to that's really affecting a lot of our discourse, or that they wouldn't understand because they don't have the the background, or they don't have the belief structure. But that we need to be able to talk about these things even with limited knowledge, in a way that asks the questions as though there are answers, as though there is a truth to be found.
You made me think about when I was in the seminary. I had a wonderful professor of homiletics, Father Al Mamni, and great preacher, and I guess that's why he was teaching the class, right? And we asked him about these hard topics, like when the opportunity arises that you want to talk about these hard topics, these tough situations in a homily. How do you do it? What's the best way to sort of approach it, And I will never forget what he said. He said, you never want to talk about these things until your people know that you love them.
It's
and
so
that's
true.
That's never left me. Because, when I moved to a brand new parish, I'm not going to go in there and talk about spicy topics right away, right? But when we grow as a community of faith, when we know that we're here to worship God together, when we know that we're here doing the Lord's work, we're sharing in relationship with one another, we have respect for each other. We're not just getting passionate. We're doing this because we love the Lord and we love each other.
And if people know your heart, right? Like that, if they can know your heart.
Yeah. And that's when these conversations can take place.
100%.
So this online dialogue between people who could care less about each other, all they know about each other is their name, whether that's a real one or not. It's easy to go back and forth and lambaste each other and say whatever you want without any repercussions. But in real life, in person life, you can't do that, or you just end up shouting. You have to have these conversations when people know that you care for them and that you love them, and you want, like God wants for all of us, the best for each one of us, right? So when Jesus stands in the synagogue and says this truth, he's doing it for everyone's benefit, right? It may not be welcome news at the time, and there might be something that you struggle with that the church teaches or Jesus says, and you and me, whatever it might be. Sure. But we take them, we try and understand it. Why would God say these things? Why would God want these things?
Why does the church back this up?
Why does the church back this up for so many, years and centuries and all these things? And what can I do to how can I ask the Lord to open my eyes and open my heart and help me to understand these things more, right?
And being able to ask the bigger question, like, what is truth? Like, where do I find truth? And like, a lot of what I'm getting on the internet is information. Not necessarily truth, but you have that's a theme throughout the gospel. Like even Pilate asking Jesus, what is truth? And he's asking that in a situation where his answer is pretty loaded for the next steps, because he's weighing all the factors of he's trying to control an insurrection basically in his. So like he's weighing all the political factors that aren't completely irrelevant to our context. It's like he's trying to see truth through the lens of Roman philosophy and politics and the socioeconomic situation that's happening on his front door. And it's like he's asking like, what is truth? Yeah, and truth is standing there staring him in the face. Yeah, that truth is a Jesus person. Truth is manifest. So I think that's maybe another step to like, okay, when we're asking, how do we know the truth, or like where do we go looking for truth? Yeah. Like Jesus saying, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. And it's like that should be our, especially when we're talking about these hot button issues. Yeah. That should be our starting point.
I think that's really smart, because one of the things I was thinking about was on social media. Like most of you guys know, but for the listeners and stuff, it was like I started a couple years ago. We did a 90 days off of social media and a couple other challenges and stuff. And off of 90 days of social media, I realized that my life had gotten so much better that I decided to stay off of it. So, and I'm a computer guy. I am not on any social media stuff, because my life was just so much. I was getting these opinions. You have to realize, like the computers that you're watching through social media and through Google and those. Like I teach the course in AI, which basically feeds you the stuff that you click on. So if this is a hot button topic, boom, you click on it. Google gets a reward for that. Every time you click, that's a reward. So, but they're trying to give you everything. They're giving you things that you are going to click on.
Yeah.
So if you start going down the way of a certain mandate or a certain belief or a certain whatever, and you're finding you're getting more and more of these things, and you start going down that path, and if it's causing unpeace in your soul, if it's causing unpeace in your heart, or you're getting upset about these things, I'm going to encourage you, stop. Yeah. And what you said, bring it back. Stop doing that stuff and go back, and maybe you need to take a prayer time with Jesus. Maybe you need to just say, okay, Lord, I'm getting really unpeaceful about this. Whatever it may be. Maybe I'm really scared about this convoy coming through. Maybe I'm really upset about this convoy. Or maybe I'm really upset with the news media not proclaiming what I'm seeing in the convoy, if you're there or if you've heard about it or whatever. Like whatever side of the story. But if you're getting really upset about it and you're getting really frustrated about whatever you're seeing in the news, take a step back. Mm-hmm. Let the news be the news. Turn it off. Take it to prayer. Take it to the Bible. Take it to reading and ask God, okay, God, I really want the truth in this. I really want to see speak to me the truth in what I'm seeing here. And then kind of try to, but bring it back to Jesus. Bring it back to the Bible. Bring it back to you. Turn off the busyness that is getting you upset and then go from there.
Yeah, the one thing not to do is just ignore it and throw it off a cliff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the people in the gospel tried to do with Jesus, because it's not going to go anywhere.
No.
Like we have to sort of to face these things and learn about them, and we do that like we were saying.
Get grounded.
Exactly.
Yeah. Get grounded first and then approach it.
So whether it's stuff in our social life, our media life, whatever, we're trying to see. We're trying to find, we're trying to read more than one source and see different things. In the scriptures, we're trying to let the Lord enlighten us and fill our hearts with that love, because that's ultimately why the church teaches what it does. It's because God loves us so much. So if we have that context, then hopefully we'll understand those things better. And let's afford that love to each other as well.
That's right.
Let's afford that, whether it's online, in person, someone you see on the media, someone you see protesting, not protesting, whatever it might be. Yeah. We need to afford that love to each person, because we're not going to move forward here in society in a better way unless we do that.
Yeah.
Well, the time for the truth has come to an end, I guess. Now we can go back and talk about falsities, I guess. But thanks for this conversation. If anyone has anything to add to our conversation, please do send us an email at thecatholicbuzzpodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment right on our Facebook or Instagram pages as well. Okay, and we will see you next time. My name is Father Daniele, and for Josh Sullivan and Matt Van Milligan, you have been watching or listening to The Catholic Buzz.